New York City generates more than 14 million tons of trash each year. Not only that, it's also America's densest city. Its narrow, traffic-jammed streets make collecting all that garbage a historically logistical nightmare. And New York City is located in the center of a giant urban expanse where available land for disposing of garbage is in short supply. To deal with these challenges, the city relies on a complex waste management ecosystem, encompassing 2 city agencies, 3 modes of transport including trucks, trains, and barges, 2,000 city collection trucks, an additional 248 private waste hauling companies, and a diverse network of temporary and permanent facilities extending halfway around the world. Waste management problems are nothing new for New York City. As described in the 1657 ordinance before the United States was even its own nation, and when the city of New York was referred to as New Amsterdam. Inhabitants throw their rubbish, filth, ashes, dead animals, and such like things into public streets to the great inconvenience of the community. For centuries even after then, problems persisted like the city's issues with horse manure in the streets posing a health hazard for residents. By 1881, New York City streets were still notoriously filthy. So dirty that it was causing people to constantly get sick. So the New York City Department of Street Cleaning was established to clean up the streets as well as in response to the public uproar over the littered-lined streets and disorganized garbage collection. And the department did start to clean up the city, but it quickly ran out of places to put the trash. Throughout the 1880s, 75% of New York City's waste was dumped straight into the Atlantic Ocean. In 1895, Commissioner George Waring instituted a waste management plan that eliminated ocean dumping and mandated recycling. Household waste was separated into 3 categories. Food waste, which was steamed and compressed to eventually produce grease for soap products and fertilizer. Rubbish, from which paper and other marketable materials were salvaged. And ash, which along with the non-salable rubbish was landfilled. The police department, under the direction of its commissioner, Theodore Roosevelt, yes, that Theodore Roosevelt, enforced the recycling law. World War I brought an end to recycling in 1918 due to labor and material shortages, leading to the reinstatement of ocean dumping. Over the next 20 years, the sanitation department would build and operate 22 incinerators and 89 landfills in the area. Since the 1960s, no new waste disposal facilities have been constructed in New York City. Active incinerators numbered 11 in 1964, 7 in 1972, 3 in 1990, and finally 0 in 1994. These incinerators were being closed because they didn't meet the EPA's clean air standards and were quickly becoming nauseous to nearby residents. 6 landfills filled to capacity were closed between 1965 and 1991, leaving the city with only 1 remaining landfill, which was finally closed just 10 years later in 2001. Through most of its history until 1973, New York's primary method for disposing of its waste was simply to dump it into the ocean. The city used some of its garbage, mostly ash, rubble, and other debris, to create artificial land, thereby increasing its own size. Much of the city's land today, including some of its priciest neighborhoods, are literally built on garbage. A map depicting Lower Manhattan from the 1660s can give a good idea of where the old coastline was and how much it has grown from its beginning. New York City's 14 million tons of trash per year is managed by 2 waste management systems, one public, one private. The public system handles waste from residences and government buildings as well as some nonprofits. This public waste, which accounts for about a quarter of the city's total, is collected by New York's Department of Sanitation, the largest waste management agency in the world, with a yearly budget of $1.5 billion, greater than the annual budget of these countries. The other 3/4 of New York's garbage is generated from commercial businesses, most of its rubble and debris from construction projects. Collection of this private waste does not come out of the city's budget. Instead, businesses must pay one of the city's 248 licensed waste haulers to take it away. Numerous businesses, including hotels, restaurants, and some of the busiest international airports and marine terminals, contract with these private operators to handle their collections. Overseeing private trade waste is New York's Business Integrity Commission, an agency originally created to rid the carting industry of organized crime. Why was this necessary? Well, New York City's garbage hauling industry has long had ties to organized crime and the mafia. Today, this corruptive influence has largely been eliminated, and the BIC's primary function is regulatory oversight and setting price controls. In 2012, New York's public and private waste management systems spent a combined $2.3 billion on garbage collection and disposal. Before the trash goes out to the curb for pickup, New York law requires it to be separated into 3 categories: paper, metal, glass, and plastic, or mixed solid waste, the non-recyclable garbage. Each type of waste is typically collected separately and follows a different path to its ultimate destination, often with several intermediate stops along the way. After finishing their routes, most of these trucks will deposit the garbage in one of New York's waste transfer stations located throughout the city. From there, the garbage will eventually be loaded onto a barge or train and carried as far as 600 miles to its final stop. For most of New York's mixed solid waste, about 80% of it, this last stop will be a landfill. The remaining 20% will end up at a waste-to-energy plant, where it will be incinerated and converted into energy. The paper and metal, glass, plastic waste is brought to one of the city's recyclable handling and recovery facilities, specialized plants which separate and sort the recyclable materials. From this point, the journey of New York's recyclable waste splits apart into many possible directions. Some of it will be sold to local raw material processors such as paper mills, smelters, etc. Some will be exported overseas, most often 6,000 or 7,000 miles to China or India. Some will be sold through intermediary waste brokers, and some specific items will be separated and sold directly to their end users. For example, crates to a Coca-Cola bottling plant or beer kegs to Anheuser-Busch. New York City has approximately 35,000 tons of trash a day. But as stated earlier, there are no city landfills or incinerators. It all has to be transported out of town. Moving the vast amounts of waste through the city's crowded streets is time-consuming and costly. That's why, as of 2016, the city adopted a new plan with a logistics twist to handle the daily challenges trash poses. Now it can end up as far away as Ohio, Pennsylvania, and even South Carolina. Getting the trash from the city to the landfills and incinerators takes thousands of workers, trucks, trains, cranes, and barges operating non-stop. They can't afford to stop the flow of trash for rain, snow, hail, or other storms because garbage piles up so quickly. New York City's Department of Sanitation sends its fleet of 2,000 garbage trucks and 7,300 workers to start picking up at 5 a.m. As the trucks make their stop at a dumping point, there are radiation detectors that read the trucks. They then pause at the weigh station to help the city track how much waste the city is producing, and then eventually they will dump it out into large containers. Former Mayor Michael Bloomberg's approach to handling the logistics of the city's trash called for new infrastructure to be built. In 2016, the city inked a plan under which 4 new marine waste transfer stations would be built and 5 rail stations activated to move nearly all the city's residential and more of the commercial garbage by rail or barge. The resulting tractor-trailer trucks and sanitation vehicles will travel 6 million less miles. The Solid Waste Management Plan is a 5-borough plan that will handle New York City's waste and offer flexibility and resiliency in case of a natural disaster or other emergency. The plan provides New York City with new infrastructure and mandates a switch from reliance on long-haul trucking to a system of marine and rail transfer stations spread throughout the 5 boroughs. Full implementation of the plan is designed to reduce annual truck travel by more than 60 million miles total, including the 6 million miles in and around the city, and will cut greenhouse gas emissions associated with waste transport by 34,000 tons annually. The SWMP includes areas such as North Brooklyn, the South Bronx, and Southeast Queens. Under the terms of the contract, Waste Management will accept sealed waste containers from the Department of Sanitation at the Hamilton Avenue and Southwest Brooklyn Marine Transfer Stations. Cranes will load the containers onto barges, which will be transported to a Waste Management-owned intermodal facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey. From there, containers will be transported to a rail yard where they will be loaded onto rail cars for transport to their final destinations. The contract includes disposal facilities in Virginia and upstate New York. The $3.3 billion contract has an initial term of 20 years, with 2 optional 5-year extensions. Any city that has been around for hundreds of years has to overcome significant challenges as they experience population booms, technological advances, and economic wind and downfalls. Very little about New York City remains the same as it was when it was still a colony. but experiencing the significant changes and handling the problems with which they bring on a massive scale is a process of constant innovation and improvement. There is no one solution to solve the waste problem of New York City, but taking actions to try and make things better and not getting complacent with how things have always been done is certainly a step in the right direction. Thank you for watching Learn Something New. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more. And don't forget to check out the other video I made on New York City about how the Empire State Building became the world's tallest. See you next time.